and today we are going to talk about some of the AWS services. So if you look at this architecture, so this is a serverless architecture because all the components, API gateway, Lambda, and the DynamoDB and the CloudWatch, all every service is a serverless. There is no infrastructure needs to be created or any hardware storage or anything needs to be maintained by the user. Everything is in background will be controlled by the AWS. So multiple times we need to use this architecture wherein we have to interact with the DynamoDB through our application, a mobile application or a desktop application or any other microservice. We push in the data from using the API gateway for throttling and to address the multiple incoming requests from the users. So therefore we have an application gateway and the different requests coming in like get request or post request. To differentiate that, we have an API gateway. So uh, on top of everything, I mean, there is will be an API gateway. The request is coming through that, and in turn, they are going to call the Lambda function, and there will be a serverless, Lambda function because we know the Lambda is serverless. So therefore, and the DynamoDB, so we are going to hit the DynamoDB. So we are performing two kind of operations here. The get, we are going to get integration, API get integration via Lambda to the DynamoDB table, and second operation or second integration we are going to do is from the API gateway via Lambda to insert the data into the DynamoDB table. So the first integration is going to be the get method integration in API gateway to retrieve information from the DynamoDB table. So if we are going to perform this, so let's look at the high level agenda of the items we have today. So we are going to, for access and privilege perspective, we need to have an IAM role so that the API gateway can have assume that role to access the Lambda function, and Lambda in turn again should be having the access to the DynamoDB, right? So for that we need to have an IAM role, and the second step is going to be the creation of the DynamoDB table, and the again we need to create the some Lambda functions, right? For get so there is an employee data, so I have named the Lambda function as Lambda DynamoDB get employee. So through get employees we are going to retrieve the data using a using the primary key of any record, and we need to create the API gateway, and the get method we need to create, and we need to try to run this operation, okay, to retrieve the values or data from the DynamoDB through API gateway, and this will happen via um, Lambda function. So this forward operation we are going to do, and the response we are going to get. This is first integration we are going to perform today, and the second integration we are going to do is to post method to update DynamoDB table, to update, or let's say insert, to be precise in this tutorial. We can do multiple things, add, insert, or I mean insert, update, or delete even, or creation of the tables and everything we can perform. So in this also the same IAM role, because every operation is happening via Lambda function from the API gateway to the DynamoDB tables. Therefore, we are going to use the same IAM role and the same DynamoDB table, let's say, and we will have a different Lambda function in this post operation, and the API gateway and the method is going to be different. Okay, and the resource may be same, but the method is going to be different, and then we are going to test it. So okay, let's go to the management console. So what I have done is I have created every infrastructure already, but I'm going to explain how to create it. And I have a document prepared so that you can easily stepwise you can follow those instructions and create R2 integration, get integration, and the post integration using the API gateway Lambda function and to the DynamoDB table, right? So first of all, we are going to create the IAM role. So this is the IAM role. So let's go to the IAM management console. So prerequisite is to have an AWS account and all. So those kind of things, or probably you can utilize the free tier, tenure if you are. This is going to be a 12-month free tenure for the free tier if you create today. So those all things you already know. So uh, so we have to create the role. So if you go to this dashboard, IAM dashboard, identity and access management dashboard, so you will have a create role. Okay, so you need to go to this create role and you just create the role. Okay, and let's say you create the DynamoDB here. You just select some. Okay, and then create, go to the next one, and then take the full access and create the role. So I will be showing you the role which I have created already. Okay, let me show you. So I have created this role. So the role name is DynamoDB API Gateway role. So this is the single role. I mean, it is used by API Gateway to assume that role to call the Lambda function, and that way, that purpose. And also I am going to attach this role with the while creating the Lambda function, so that Lambda function can have access to the DynamoDB table. So first of all, to access the DynamoDB, so I have attached the already created policy. Okay, this policy is provided by the AWS. So I have attached it. And another thing which it requires is we have to this API gateway, right, need to assume the role. Okay, while calling the Lambda function. So this trust relationship needs to be there. So if you go to the trust relationship, you, because it's configured already. So if you don't do it already, so then if you edit it, you can edit it, and you can specify API gateway Amazon AWS.com. So this policy I have in here. Okay, so maybe I will paste the link of this document after this video. uh, okay, and then you can utilize this. And second thing we need to have is this invoke of privilege to the API gateway, right? So if you look at it, I am just opening it. So this is a simple allow Lambda invoke function. This is going to the action and the resource, let's say all the resources. Okay, so this additional inline policy which is created by customer, in the sense of I have created this. So, and I have attached this policy. You can add permission like attach policy. You create the policy, inline policy, and I have created this inline policy, and then after that I have attached this policy. Therefore, this customer managed policy has come over here. So in that way, you create the LAM role. First of all, you attach the DynamoDB full access AWS managed policy, and then you can customer managed policy. You can attach it, and also you have to have the trust relationship attached. Put in here. Okay, so these three things you need to have. Otherwise, there will be an issue. If you don't give the DynamoDB policy, then AWS Lambda function will not be able to call the DynamoDB tables in their code. And if you don't say I am this invoke policy, then your API gateway cannot be will not be able to access the Lambda function. Okay, and if you do not assign the trust relationship, then also API gateway cannot assume the role of this entire process. Okay, so this is all about step number one, wherein we have created this IAM role, and the second step is creating the DynamoDB table. So go to the DynamoDB dashboard, and I have created already the employee table. And if you look at the table, I have this employee table. I have two columns, right? I mean, I have a partition key as an employee ID and sort key as a department ID. Department ID. If you look at the data in the table, so go to the particle editor within this dashboard, and and then you can try to retrieve the values from the employee table. If you run this, I have some data already inserted in, so you can see this, there are 4 records already inserted into this table. We are going to insert few more, and we are going to retrieve these data as well using the API gateway in some time. So this is simple DynamoDB. So you can create the table, other table as well. So this is going to be simple. It will be asking for partition key and the the partition key and the sort key and other things, and other columns dynamically you can add, right? So this is a NoSQL database, therefore you can add any number of columns, okay, on the go. Now so we have created the second step, and then we are going to create the Lambda functions. So we are going to create 2 Lambda functions to get the retrieve the data from the DynamoDB table, and also inserting the DynamoDB table. Okay, so let's go to the Lambda functions. So go to the Lambda, AWS Lambda dashboard. So I have go to the functions. So I have created 2 functions. Okay, and they are going to the runtime of these, both of these are Python based functions. Okay, so if you create the function, so create function wizard is, it's going to be very very simple. You name it, you give the runtime of this, let's say Python, and then the architecture, and then the permission. So main thing is, you exist roles. So whenever you have to give the role, you give the created role, right? So we have created the AWS DynamoDB role. So you assign this role. So when I have created these 2 functions, which are already there, the get employee and put employee, I have given the role to them as a maybe role of, we may not be able to see this role. I think configuration, probably we may not be able to see here. Monitor. So yeah, I think no. So I have attached that role which we have created over here. Uh, this one we have seen, right? This API gateway role. So I have attached with these 2 functions already. So now whenever you see the you do this, so you have by default function, this event handler function over here, and in that we need to some use the boto3 library, which is AWS SDK for the Python SDK for the AWS operations, AWS services. So we will create some objects, DynamoDB and the table, and then we are going to get the item based on the primary key and the sort key, and we are going to return the response of that item while saying that this item has been retrieved. Okay, so these things we are going to see whenever we are going to test it. So let's look at the get employee. Okay, and now let's uh, let's see the put employee function as well. So if you look at the put employee function, so this also will have be triggered from the API gateway. Okay, So this also has the DynamoDB access, everything, and it is going to put the item, table dot put item, in the sense of it is going to insert the data. So when you create the function, you deploy the function in the sense of it is deployed and it's ready to be executed from the any other trigger, or probably from the here also you can test it. There is an visit, there is a button, right? You can test it over here. So we are not going to test it over here as of now, but now let's try to go to the another step, which is create API gateway, and everything need to be done. So let's go to the API gateway. So we came to the API gateway, and we have seen that there is an API gateway already there. So I have created the API gateway already, and so first of all, we are going to do the uh, get method. We need to retrieve the values from the you know retrieve the values from the DynamoDB table through this gateway. Okay, employee details gateway. So like any other creation of the API gateway, we need to create the resource which is called employee. So now you go to action and create the resource first. So I have named the resource as employees. Okay, and then you need to create the create method, and then you have chosen the get method, and then uh, in the get method you need to configure it actually. So the thing is, you have to perform the post operation internally, because the lambda will be understanding the post operation. Even uh, in for the outer word it looks like it's in the get operation, but lambda understand the post operation. So we are going to configure this get operation using the internally as an a post to the lambda, and then it is going to retrieve the data from the DynamoDB table. So if you look at the but from the API perspective, it is a get method. So you'll have there are methods, right? Create method. So there will be a methods row. So we will have to select the. So why it is not here? Okay. So if you click on here, then create method, and then there will be a. It should have get method as well. I don't know. I mean, why it is not coming as get create method? Maybe because we have an already, so therefore it is not coming. So, okay. So because in the resource we have already get and post, so these two methods are not coming again, right? So but if we create the new resource, let's say we create the new resource over here, create a resource, let's say emp1. So this new resource, and then let's say create a method. So this method is same as it, right? So this we need to create. So now I am going to delete this. I think it's not. Let's. Going to delete the resource. I'll delete the resource. So because we have already configured everything, so I am going to show you how to do the get operation. Now, if you look at this get, and if you click on the get, so then there will be a this mechanism will be the method request, integration request, integration. Then it will go to the lambda because we have a target as a lambda. Then integration response from the lambda and the method response. So these four steps are going to happen because it's an REST API. Okay. So so whenever you see this, so first of all you need to configure the method request. So if you configure the method request, you have to go to the settings and request validator. You need to choose the validate query string parameter and header, and then save it. API key required is false. Okay, and then you have to you query string parameter. So for us, we will give the two parameters, department ID and employee ID. So you create these two parameters over here. While creating a new parameter, you can do like this, right? You give the name. Okay, let's say ABC. You give the name, and then you click on this one. And if you want to remove it, then you can remove this parameter. So for now, we have created two parameters. Okay, create the two parameters. There is no body over here. So for get method, we need to just create two things. Go to the settings, select these values, and then you go to the query string parameters and create two parameters. Okay, so these all you have to do it, then go back to the method execution method request, then you go to the integration request. So this step is important. Okay, so when you do this get integration requests, you go to the AWS service. Okay, so integration type is it is asking. So there are multiple things here: Lambda function, HTTP, mock, AWS service, something. So what we are going to go through is we are going to use the AWS service Lambda function, and from this API gateway get operation. Therefore, we have selected AWS service. Then you need to select the region wherever AWS Lambda function is defined. So that specific region you are going to select, and then AWS service you select the Lambda. Subdomain is not required. HTTP method post you need to select. Even if it is in get method, because Lambda understands the post operation, therefore you need to select the post method and the path override. So this is important. So action type, there will be one column, right? One value which is action type. So in that action type, you need to you select the path override, and in that path override you give this value. So let's understand what is this value is. So let's copy over here. So this is a AWS recommended, I should say path basically, but from your perspective or from anybody which is who is using this perspective, you need to give the Lambda function name over here, okay, and the region app south one, right, and the account. So these three things you need to change, otherwise you have to give the entire string. Use give this entire string, you give your region name, you give your AWS account number, and you give your AWS Lambda function name. So if you give three things and all together, if you prepare this string override path and paste it in the path override, and then we come to the execution role. So you have to give the ARN of the execution role of the IAM, this one. So this ARN I have copied and I have pasted whenever I have configured this integration request. Then you have to give the credential case. I think there is a default, you don't have to select. Then content handling pass through default, and then save it. Okay, I think you don't have to give the URL path parameters, nothing is required. You don't have to give the query string parameter, you don't have to give the header, but you have to give the mapping template. So um, whenever you click on the mapping template, you need to select this. When no template matches the request content type header, there will be three values, you need to select this one. Then you content type, you need to application JSON you need to select, and then save it. And okay, so if you click on it, so there will be a editor for the template. So this editor mapping template we need to give. Mapping template in the sense of whatever values you are passing from the gateway, it will be converted into the these names, right? So employee ID will be converted like A, it will be understood. So it will be passed as an A to the Lambda function. Department ID will be passed as an B to the Lambda function. So A and B will be, if you look at this, this is put employee, right? So if you look at the get employee function, so we have retrieved using A and B, right? So lambda will be seeing these values A and B, but we are passing from the interface, we are passing the employee ID and department ID like that. So that mapping you need to give, and you can save it. Okay, and then you come to the integration response. I don't think so we need to do anything, and we don't have to do the response as well. Nothing, method execution, nothing is required. So we have prepared the get. So let's test it. So the final step is to test the thing, right? So let's test it. Okay, so I have, let's say I have to give the values like this: employee ID is equal to the name of the employee, and then this ampersand, and then department ID and HR1. So okay, two values I am going to pass, A and B, right? So this employee ID I'm passing from the interface, but in turn internally, because we have the mapping template assigned to the get method, therefore it is going to be converted into the A and B. A is going to be RAM1, RAM1, and department ID is going to be equal to HR1. So if we click on the test, so let's click on the test. So my response came as a site Kharadi, employee ID RAM1, department ID HR1, right? So this is my response. So let's see the Lambda function get employee. So get employee, this function has been called, right? Employee ID had been retrieved using the event. So event has come to the this function Lambda handler, and event A is going to be a employee ID event B. So A and B are the two. If you print the event, then you will find the dictionary came from the API gateway, and we have retrieved those values. And while getting get item, so there is an, if you look at the documentation of Boto 3 documentation for DynamoDB, so if you get the get item of table object function, get item function, then you will see that you have to pass the key fields, and you will retrieve the response as a whole record. So if you get the response, and response item will be having the complete record. So if you look at the DynamoDB table, and if you go to the DynamoDB table, and let's see the data over here. So SR1 or RM1 Kharadi, right? This record has been come. Let's test for this David1 FIN1. So let's see David1 FIN1. Okay. So these two parameters we passed. Let's test it. So the values complete record came, right. The site is London, email is david@gmail.com, employee ID David1, and department ID Fin1. So this whole record has been came as a response body. So status is 200 is a okay, in the sense of our uh, function call has been successful, and we are able to retrieve the values from the DynamoDB table. So this API is working. So if you want to deploy this thing, you need to go to the deploy API, and let's say new stage, and let's say uh, test. Okay, and you go to test, you go to here, you go to here, and you go to here. So if you click, this is the URL, so we can use this URL as well to retrieve the value. So currently it is not giving, we need to pass the parameters. So see, I have already, I think, so if you pass the parameter, you will retrieve the value, like, the body has come site, and so the response has come as a 200, and so you can beautify this response further, right? So let's say we are going to get some other value, let's say RAM3. Okay, so let me RAM3 and HR3. Okay, so see, so this site walker email that happened at gmail.com employee ID RM3 department. So this whole record has come. Okay, this one. So this way we can, so we can retrieve the values, right? So I think it's an API gateway. So this is the URL. So both way you can do. You can test from the or. So this architecture, further can be enhanced using the Route 53. So this URL is not. I mean, it doesn't look good, right? So we can have the Route 53 routing from the from the other domain, and then you can map that call to this API actually. Okay, that we'll try to do in some other video session. So now let's try to the post operation. Okay, we have done the get and we are going to do the post operation. So I have a post operation as well. So post operation is going to be easy basically. So you just create the post operation and then you can try testing it. Okay, so with respect to post, so let's look at the Lambda function which we have. Put items, right? Put employees. So input employees, we will be receiving the data, event data from the API gateway, and it is going to call the put item, and getting data is going to be inserted into the DynamoDB table in the background. Okay, so let's test the post operation. Okay, go to the resources, the post. So go to the resources and then we have two resource posts. So let's try to test it. So this time we don't have to pass the query string parameter or header. We have to give the values from the body actually. So how you create the thing is like you have to create the resource first. Resource is already there. We have created the get function. Now you can create the another function like So if you don't have the post method, then if you create a method, then it will be there in the list, because we have already created get and post. It is not there in the list. So in this it is going to be easy. So we have to just pass the values in the dictionary. So we have what we have an employee ID. We need to pass as a, let's say we are passing as um, Sona, and comma then department ID. Let's say this is belongs to admin, and let's say site is probably Hinjewadi, some place, and email is going to be, let's say, okay, let's say one more field as well. Let's try it. Hmm. Let's see date of joining and then test it. Okay, it says that response body is a new employee insert successfully. If you look at the function, message is a new employee insert successfully. So let's see whether it is created or not. So if you look at this, this record has come, right? Hinjewadi Sona, employee ID admin and this one, right? So this has come. This another field has also got in, right? So this is the beauty of the DynamoDB basically. So yes, so let's look at the document what we have done. We have done the this method as well, right? So everything we have done basically. So what going to do is I would be, the math. So this is whole architecture actually. We have created the Lambda function. You can attach the CloudWatch site to monitor the every operation, whether it's with respect to API gateway call or it's a Lambda or it could be a DynamoDB or this architecture can be enhanced further while placing the route 53 on top of API gateway so that we can have customized domain and customized website. So from that website we can invoke this API gateway and the respective methods, so retrieve or insert the values into the DynamoDB via Lambda. So this way we can create a scalable, cost effective serverless architecture, and we can monitor every operation through CloudWatch, right? So this and so for this operations, right, this IAM role, the policies, and this override path, and the method definitions especially, right? So these are all I am going to place in the video. I will going to give the um, blog link. Therein, I'm going to give this detail about these important things. So okay. So this is all about this architecture. Thank you so much.